Hello and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance. Of course, I am your host Clay. This week we have a little bit of a hefty show. I say hefty, but it's more conversational. Katie, my lovely co-host, has found a little bit of information that is a bit interesting when it comes to a conversation piece for Star Wars within itself. But of course, Katie is here. Katie, how are you?
Hello, everyone. I am good. I got a little bit of blade and bow here. I got some lipstick. I'm having a good week. How
You
are
know,
you?
I am doing a little better. I'm a little stressed out with school and everything else. Like, I just got an email from my professor that basically said, "Hey, the very first project you did was complete shit, and I'm calling you out on
Ah!
it." So, I have to redo the entire thing because
Oh
it actually needs to be done well in order for me to even complete the project that's due this week. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but the good thing for me is I use these podcasts as like my de-stressors, my relaxers. I can have fun, I can relax, I can conversate. I myself have I can never pronounce this. It is an imported cider. It
no!
is
Okay.
Recorderlig. I don't know what it is. All I know is that I had this brand at Epcot at Disney, and I
Okay.
was like, "This is amazing." And I thought, "Oh, I will never be able to find that anywhere." And then randomly at the liquor store, it just crossed my eye, and I was like, "Oh my god, there it is!" And so I get it almost every other weekend, and like it's just amazing. So we have our alcohol, we have our notes, we have our conversation points. This week we are going to be talking about episode 4 of the Book of Boba Fett. Before that, though, we have a talking point about well, where do you want to go first? Where do you want to Oh, well, first, before I do any of that,
Podcast paperwork.
got to do the podcast paperwork. Of course, we are a part of the GUA, the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We have 8 shows, 7 days a week. We have a bi-weekly lineup and a weekly lineup. That bi-weekly lineup, of course, starts on Sunday with a slice of film, Katie's show. It is on a temporary hiatus, but it will be coming back. Of course, our last one that we did was actually Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yes.
Was with me, Chris, and yourself.
Yep.
Lovely, lovely episode. So go check that out. Then there's World's Finest True Believers with Chris and just random hosts all around because they just talk about comic books. The latest one was actually with Nathan. Talking about the Power Ranger comic Shattered Grid. Very, very good episode. I listened to it today. Of course, on Monday as well on the bi-weekly schedule is, of course, Ranger Alliance, my show, where me, Joe, and Jake talk about just Power Rangers altogether, comics,
Yeah.
the TV show we're going through every single season. I have a feeling we're going to get something about the new Mighty, well, it's not Mighty Morphin, it's the new Power Rangers cinematic universe that's now owned by Netflix. Well, it's being produced by Netflix, owned by Hasbro, of course. And I'm super excited about it. So there's that. Then our other bi weekly show is, of course, a walk through the multiverse, which is on Saturday, and that is with my co-host Joe. Uh, of course, on Ranger Alliance, he does host his own show, A Walk Through the Multiverse, where he just talks about anything and everything that isn't Marvel, isn't DC, or isn't Star Wars. So, he has a huge, multiverse to talk about. So it's very, very fun over there.
I know.
Um,
And just a note about World's Finest True Believers. I believe the next episode is supposed to be an episode that I did with him back in November, talking about War of the Bounty Hunters, just the War of the Bounty Hunters miniseries.
Oh, look at that. A little peek inside. And also, just, because you were on a very lovely phone call right before we did this, I am so proud of my Star Wars co host getting into comics the way she is. She was just on the phone with my local comic book shop, the one that I used to work at, uh, talking to a very lovely retail associate of mine, old retail associate of mine, Erica. And you're collecting as much Star Wars comics as you possibly can. That's amazing.
Yes, I talked about it last week. I'm spending just a little too much money right now. But sometimes it's got to happen. I don't spend money often. So I got a couple omnibuses behind me. I have several trade paperbacks behind me. And I'm putting in an order with her. And the rest of the issues I found on Amazon. So like I have like now granted I don't know when the order from your comic book shop is going to come in, but I probably have like 20, 30 comics coming in next week. So
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Just rip the Band-Aid. Just don't tell Matt. Just rip the Band-Aid,
Well, I would say don't tell Matt, but we share an Amazon account. So yeah.
That's
In other news, my illustrious out of print edition came in as well.
I just got my email. It is coming in sometime next week, so I am very, very excited about that. It looks glorious. But sidetrack, you even got it. Oh, it is signed. That's right.
Yeah, it is signed.
That's the important thing about out of print. So I'm so happy. Like, even it's coming a little late, but like I just heard I'm getting snow tomorrow, which is terrifying. I need that beanie. I need that Star Wars beanie now. But of course, got a little sidetracked. The weekly shows are, of course, DC Alliance, Superhero Discussions, Marvel Alliance, and of course, this show, Star Wars Alliance. Marvel is live every Thursday night at 9:10 p.m. 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show is live Wednesday nights, of course, on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And DC Alliance, for a temporary time, is live twice a week, once on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because that is our main show. But because of Superman and Lois being on, and that is one of the only shows that we actually are really enjoying right now on the CW, we are also going live right after this show on Wednesday nights on 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I
was wondering because you're on way too many podcasts, dude. I know you said there would be stretches, but I don't know how you do it. Like,
it's a problem. I have a problem. That's the real issue here. Is I have a problem. But of course, we are also a ad-supported network as well as a fan-supported network. So you will get ads here on this episode, but if you don't want any ads, you can always join our Patreon. Of course, Patreon is $1 tier that you can just say thank you to us. But if you want those ad-free episodes, you can always go to our Patreon for the $5 tier. That $5 tier gets you all exclusive content as well as those ad-free episodes. So,
and Patreon content starting next month. I am buying a lot of comics right now, and the way I'm getting through it is I'm using them as an excuse. So I will be doing a monthly Star Wars comic roundup, just kind of covering everything except for the High Republic, because we cover those comics here. Now,
yes.
If there's a desire to dive into them, because I know we've kind of glossed over them a little bit in the review and do like a deeper dive, I can of course do that, because of course I have them. I have a lot of time with these comics. So I'm trying to get Matt to join me on a couple episodes. He picked up the High Republic Volume 1 and was like, I'm going to read a comic. He wanted to do it. I did not push him to do it, y'all, but he wanted to do it. So he's reading the High Republic Volume 1.
Nice.
And we're going to see how he does with it. But I took a picture last week and I posted it. And Chris was like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Like, last year you'd only read one comic, and now look at you. I was like,
It's so good. It's so fun. One of us, one of us, one of us. But of course, we that is one of the big things for us at the GOA this year, is we have devoted ourselves an entire schedule on getting more content to that Patreon, so that way it is well worth the $5 a month. Now, of course, we also have solo feeds for DC Alliance, Marvel Alliance, and of course this show, Star Wars Alliance, which is also very important to this show, because we also are giving away a omnibus, Star Wars The Old Republic, which is out of print. The Old Republic omnibus that we are giving away, you cannot get anywhere else. They are not
I
putting it out.
know.
So I ask you, please review the solo feed, get a snapshot of it, and send it to either Star Wars Alliance on Twitter, Fanboy Clay on Twitter, or of course, Slice of Katie on Twitter, and you will be entered to win that omnibus. Of course, we made the bet, or we made the agreement, not a bet. We made the agreement for Nathan that if he can convince, or if we can convince 10 people to do this, to
Yep.
do the reviews, then he can join in to enter to get the chance to win the omnibus as well. We're not just
And
going
you
to
know
give
what?
it to him. We're actually going to, throw him
Yeah.
into the hat, and it's going to be completely random. We're not going to do that to you guys, and we're definitely not going to do that to him. We're not just going to give it away. But
And you know what?
please,
I
oh
want
yeah,
to I want to make a split decision call. We can like kind of decide this on the fly. I want to propose if we put out a tweet after this episode and you retweet it and follow us, then we will give you an extra entry. But you have to do the review in order to get the extra entry. Is that acceptable?
yes, that is acceptable as well. So you need to, again, here's the criteria. You're going to need to review the solo feed of Star Wars Alliance on any podcatcher. I think it's majority Apple. If you can rate us on Spotify, that would be great as well. But for this entry, you need to review us on Apple Podcast, or whatever it's called nowadays. Send us a snapshot, and then retweet, and follow the Star Wars Alliance Twitter account that we are going to be posting after
Yeah,
this
I will
show.
post it after this, and it will be the pinned tweet on the accounts.
There you go. So that way it's easier to find. So remember, the entry to win that omnibus for the Old Republic is for our American listeners, for our US listeners, but do not fret, because international listeners, of course, you are entered to win a $100 gift card from Organic Price Books. Organic Price Books is the people that are providing these things for us to be able to give away. They are great at what they do. They ship these books in a timely manner, in a very safe, secured box for your comics. It's amazing how well they hold those things together. So go check them out. Of course, they are the sponsors for our sister show over at the GUA, Marvel Alliance. Use the code Marvel GUA, of course, for $2 off of every single purchase, every single time you go to Organic Price Books. It's a reusable code. So go check them out. Now, that is all of our show notes, of course. Not show notes, opening paperwork, what have you.
Opening paperwork. Keep the Kyber crystals charged around here, y'all.
Yes. Let's get on with the show. Where would you like to start off, Katie?
So, I'd say let's get the bad news out of the way first.
Okay, so I know exactly where you're going with this, because it's very confusing why this hasn't been announced. But
because Star Wars doesn't know how to promote their shit.
It's weird. It's very weird. It's almost as if they're not proud of what they make. And Star Wars is a great, just overall, it's a great IP. We love it. Mm-hmm. This is why we're here on this show talking about it every single week. I don't know why they keep doing this themselves.
But, and I get it sometimes. Okay, but I just want to bookmark this, okay? Because everybody has said, well, Marvel does the same promotion and everything. Moon Knight trailer was this previous Monday. It was Monday, January 17th. A month and a half before it's supposed to premiere. At this point, for Book of Boba Fett, we had just gotten promotional images. Gotten promotional images.
Well,
so
devil's advocate here. We have not seen promotional images for Moon Knight. We just got the trailer.
Okay, but what would you consider better, the trailer or the promotional images?
Probably the trailer. So yeah, Didn't work out all that well for Devil's Advocate here. But the news that we are so trying to avoid is to say Bad Batch Season 2 is supposedly coming out in the spring. Now, we were very confused by this because of how stacked the almost what feels like the entire year is for Marvel TV shows on Disney Plus. But then Joe reminded us, well, this could be a Friday drop while the Marvel shows are a Wednesday drop, you know?
S-Bubs brings up a very good point. There was a fucking teaser at Disney Plus Day for Moon Knight 2 months ago. So they were promoting their shit 4 months before the show came out.
That's
and
true.
How much did we get for Star Wars at Disney Plus Day?
Don't remind me.
1. A Kenobi promo
that was already shown a year prior.
Yes.
Yeah,
so that's my shit. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
Disney, if you want to hire a PR person, now would be the time to do it because you got Bad Batch Season 2, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, and potentially Mandalorian Season 3
and
this year.
Yeah. So, with that, we were joking around in the GUA chat. You know, Kate, you guys know, I was not technically officially the co-host of this show when we were reviewing that show. I would come on every so once in a while. I think as an official co-host, I think we reviewed like the last episode. But we were not a big fan of it. There was a lot of theories, of course, with Omega and like what they were going to do with the Bad Batch as a whole and how we kind of just felt like the story was kind of rushed and we didn't really get anywhere. Season 2 isn't really exciting us. Not to say...
And it's supposed to take a time jump. It's not to say things can't change.
Exactly. And people, this is how you know that I am on Twitter way too much. I am following the rumor mill in every direction on every single IP that I follow. So Marvel, I'm following rumors. Disney, I'm following rumors. DC, I'm following rumors. Star Wars, I'm following rumors. People believe that we could possibly see Omega in the Book of Boba Fett. It would be a stretch. It would be a stretch. Yeah. That's what I feel. Now, could it be possible? Yes. We know that Filoni is directing the penultimate episode. Well, sorry, he co-wrote the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
So we immediately assumed, oh, that must mean that someone in the animated world that Filoni has basically created for Star Wars is going to appear. Could that be Omega?
Right.
Maybe.
With him and Omega, he's only served as a producer for the show.
That is true.
He didn't actually get involved with any of the writing. There was a full people of color as well as women writing staff on the show. Now, granted, they had all worked for Dave Filoni before, but it was all kind of interspersed. So for me, I don't think Omega's gonna appear. I think it's a little more realistic to say Cad Bane will be the person that's showing up in the Dave Filoni episode, especially with today's we gotta hire muscle spiel at the end. Could be a very good opportunity, but it could also be a good opportunity for the Pikes to bring in somebody who hasn't had the best repertoire with Boba. So it could be just a showdown between those two. So, Clay says he'll make me review the Bad Batch Season 2, but I'm also interested because spring is defined as March to June, right? And you said it, that they could drop Moon Knight on Wednesdays and then Bad Batch on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
It would still be very interesting, I think, because they'd have to up the amount of episodes that they're premiering each day or shorten the season, I
Yeah.
think. Because every rumor mill that I have heard says Obi-Wan Kenobi is premiering May 4th.
Yeah. Same as what technically Bad Batch did last year. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, I think it would be a major disservice to Obi-Wan Kenobi to premiere Bad Batch Season 2 on that day. Now, you could drop both. You could drop both at the same time. Let's be... Star Wars doesn't know what to do in PR-wise. But with how much book promotion they're dedicating to Obi-Wan Kenobi in May and then in June, I've gotta see Obi-Wan Kenobi premiering in May, and I don't think it's reasonable to premiere an animated show at the same time. And heck, goodness knows Star Wars can't promote their own shit, but they also don't know how to promote two shows at once.
Yeah, no, because here's the deal. If for some reason they say, hey, Obi-Wan is gonna be on Wednesday and Bad Batch is gonna be on Friday, Obi-Wan will be the only thing people are talking about. From Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Oh, wait, there's a new Obi-Wan. Thursday, Friday. Bad Batch will just sink to the bottom of the barrel. Like, that's what will happen to that show.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. My mom, who hates Disney with the utmost passion, is getting Disney Plus to watch Obi-Wan Kenobi when it premieres. She hates giving Disney money. Absolutely hates it. So to get somebody like my mom involved back in Star Wars for Obi-Wan Kenobi, I mean, you're getting a lot of those people because everybody's like, oh, we hate Disney overlords and stuff. But, you know, like sometimes, I mean, look at my bookshelves. Let's be real. So, I don't see it happening. And the source for Bad Batch Season 2 premiering in spring 2022 is, in fact, the Star Wars Insider magazine. So that's kind of where we're getting that information. It's just a small little panel on a page that says Bad Batch Season 2 premiering spring 2022, and that's it. So
I wonder if that was printed before Lucasfilm and Disney had just decided like to shift some things, you know?
So I don't actually know about that. Because Claudia Gray did an interview talking about the Fallen Star. And y'all, I know we were supposed to do a Fallen Star episode this week.
We're working on it.
I got snowed in. We're working on it. Hopefully next week. But she did an interview with the Fallen Star and she said, and this is off my memory, I don't have it in front of me. But she said that she was finishing her first draft of the Fallen Star when the Rising Storm was due. So she's been working on it about a year, probably.
Okay.
Or no, not a year. That math doesn't make sense. About 6 months.
Yeah.
Is how long she's been doing the draft and everything. And we'll talk about that interview when we did the review. But they have been doing a High Republic short story in each of the Star Wars Insider magazines since the start. I think they premiered it December 2020. So,
I need to get this magazine.
I haven't been getting that. I don't get the magazine. But they do Insider collection stories, and they're going to do a Phase 1 collection.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna get that. Because I'm too cheap for magazines. So they've been doing those short stories in those magazines, so I don't really know how much of a time gap there is between print and everything, because I mean these stories take time, and granted they've been planning it for a while, but I don't know. So yeah. And I don't know what else was in the magazine to indicate like time period of writing or anything. Yeah. It's just the Q4 magazine for 2021. So
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Like I said, if this is true, we should be seeing some sort of promotion and or announcement. We should. That's how normal businesses and production studios work. So we shall see. But before
um,
we jump into our second conversation topic of
well,
today,
hang on. S-Bub says Kenobi will be massive. Mando was huge, and that wasn't an established character. Bad Batch won't even hit top trending topics if they're 2 days apart. Yeah, I think we
yeah,
completely agree. Bad Batch was struggling to hit trending topics on its own. So
that's true though. There was maybe like the first episode and then the finale were kind of its biggest talking points.
yeah,
I know that the story with Hera kind of brought some Rebel fans out to talk about it, but it still wasn't huge.
yeah.
So hopefully they do have some, secret marketing plan in their bag for how they're going to do this, but we shall see. But let's go ahead and take our very first ad break, and then we will come back to talk about a very interesting plot point that was supposed to be in Force Awakens. So we will be right back. And we are back. So, Katie, you sent this to me, and it's a little jarring considering how important this specific thing is to Star Wars as a whole. And not just when I say a whole, I'm not just talking movies. I am talking literally Star Wars in cartoons, in books, and of course the movies, in the legacy books, like everything, legends books, whatever you call them. Yes, everything. So you sent me this article stating that in the original draft of the Force Awakens, it originally included the destruction of Coruscant. And you said you wanted to have this be a topic today of what we were going to talk about. So I think this, like I said, it's a bit jarring. This place is a huge, significant, just idea of a place, really, because of course it had the council, it had uh, just for me. Whenever I think of Star Wars and I think of cities, and well, not just city. If I think of places of Star Wars, I think of Tatooine, the Death Star, and Coruscant. Those are the three things that I think of when it comes to Star Wars. So, why do you think this was something that they wanted to do, and why do you think they decided not to do it?
So okay, I'm pulling up the Pablo Hidalgo tweet. Now, granted, the original tweet has been deleted, y'all. So you can find this story on IGN. Um, but he did respond to somebody else called Wookiee News. And the tweet says J.J. Abrams' initial idea in Star Wars The Force Awakens was for Coruscant to be one of the planets destroyed by Starkiller Base. However, Lucasfilm did not agree to this, and instead Hosnian Prime was created as the new galactic capital. And Pablo Hidalgo responded to this and said, I never said whose idea it was. It was part of the process as seen in the concept art of Republic City. And he said, he quote tweeted that response to that and said, it's not all that deep. The concept art resembles Coruscant because for a time it was, but that planet had the potential to be featured in something else in development, so it was changed to a different location. Not really all that newsworthy. So basically what he's insinuating is they wanted to destroy a city type planet that had a lot of meaning to the Republic. And so I did not see the original tweet, but the insinuation was because Star Wars was a small galaxy at the time, because Disney had come out and said, hey, yeah, we're deleting everything Legends and we're going to go in the direction of our own canon.
Yeah.
So with The Force Awakens, it was a whole new galaxy. We knew Coruscant, we knew Tatooine, we knew Endor and Hoth. and that's pretty much it. Naboo, if you want to count them.
Yeah.
But City Planet meant Coruscant to a lot of people. And that concept art that came out shows it looks a lot like the Coruscant artwork that we've seen. Heck, the Coruscant artwork is my backdrop for my computer. So it looks very similar. But in a galaxy far, far away, everything's gigantic. And so it's just kind of like okay, it's like everybody insinuated that Naomi Ackel's character was Lando's daughter because we knew Lando had a daughter and Naomi Ackles was black.
Yeah.
I hate to make that comparison, but it's very similar.
Yeah.
Everybody likes to think of it as a small galaxy. So they just kind of go to what we know. And sometimes that's not always the case. So
yeah, I feel like they should have done it.
Really?
Yes. I feel like they should have done it just because, well, for one, I feel like it's not on the same level of like, I guess, like, oh my God, as the Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
But we see, starting with The Force Awakens, yes, some people say, a majority of people say, that Force Awakens is basically just a New Hope blueprint, and that's the formula that they follow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a in-story reason for that, but yes, I feel like if you would have started to kind of destroy the things that people know Star Wars to be, people would start like, yeah, they would complain about it. They'd be like, oh, this, the same shit we get now. Hashtag not my Star Wars. This is stupid, blah, 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 blah. But I want to see dramatic changes to show me that you, as storytellers, are willing to say, hey, we're moving in a direction that is different from everybody else's opinion on what Star Wars is. Like, there is a crowd for the original trilogy. There is a crowd for the prequel trilogy, and there should be a crowd for the new trilogy. And there is, but with the stuff that we're going to talk about in the Fallen Star, like, we are following these Jedi, and there's this huge thing called Starlight Beacon, and you're thinking, oh well, Starlight Beacon isn't around by the time the original trilogy comes around, so what in the hell happened to it? Well, something dramatic happened to it, and that something dramatic happens. We will get to it. But in the same light, you can almost make an argument that Coruscant has always been that place that's just like other than Revenge of the Sith, super like, this is peace. This is like, this is the normal side of Star Wars,
Yeah.
And destroying that, I feel like would, like, it would be jaw dropping, but it's like, okay, you're willing to make some changes. Let's see how the story goes.
I think I would tend to agree with you. I think Star Wars needs to kind of make a drastic change in that area. However, I would disagree in that it needed to be in The Force Awakens because it is the Skywalker saga. I think for what Coruscant represented with the Republic, it kind of needed to stick around in terms of not devastating everything that's around it. The whole reason the Republic leaves Coruscant, the New Republic, not the Republic, but the New Republic leaves Coruscant is because of what it represented during the Empire. They wanted to show that they were making a change, which is why they made Hosnian Prime. So with that, I think it still stood for an old system, and that Coruscant represented Palpatine in that instance. And so that's why it kind of needed to stick around. I don't necessarily, it is not revealed what the plans were for the planet pictured in the concept art. However, I would say that if you can move 200 years in the future for Star Wars, destroying Coruscant might be a good idea in that case. We don't know what the Resistance built in terms of a government yet, So they may have gone back to Coruscant. They may have found something else. When you're talking about Star Wars, you're always looking for some kind of conflict to center your storytelling around. So destroying Coruscant may be a good storytelling element for a future-based Star Wars. But in terms of the Skywalker saga, I think Coruscant has kind of meant too much to it in terms of placement to be destroyed in The Force Awakens. I think it would have killed too many people because Force Awakens made money.
Yeah.
And it had several people who went and saw it multiple times because of the nostalgia aspect that it brought forth. And I think if you had destroyed Coruscant, you would have lost your word of mouth and you would have lost those repeat viewers.
That is also true. I completely understand that. I get that for sure. That's really all I have on it, you know.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting idea for sure, you know. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that would be more dramatic than that. Uh I mean, other than what, you know, of course, what they did in The Last Jedi. But like again, and and just like S Bubs, destroying Coruscant destroyed my childhood. Um there's not really anything there then. I mean, I feel like this would have been horrible storytelling, just like all of the old heroes die within the first film, like just because of like basically in a starfight, like that's it, just like in a giant galactic battle, just boom, ship explodes, they're all dead. Okay, start new. Like that would have been horrible, but I don't know.
Well, and I think, to a lot of people who are like, well, this would have sucked even more. Like, I know Star Wars Theory has done a lot and been like, oh, J.J. Abrams is a complete asshole. Like, I can't believe he even considered this. Dude, have you read the Legend stuff? The Yuuzhan Vong completely turned Coruscant upside down. Coruscant is the most technological city in the known galaxy, and they completely turn it upside down. Plants are growing everywhere. Like there's like buildings covered in moss because they terraformed it. So it's just like, and I say moss, but it's like Star Wars moss. So it's like you've got to kind of take everything with a grain of salt. But Coruscant in Legends was completely unrecognizable. And like there were several planet destroying items in Legends. So
Yeah.
planet destroyers are always going to be a thing in Star Wars. I don't care what people say. They're always going to be around. So I think 200 years in the future, it's perfectly legit if Coruscant goes bye-bye.
Yeah. S-Pub says they were at the Death Star destruction party on Coruscant and they all died off screen. But I think that's really all we had. You know, we well, did I get your opinion? Because I think it was Joe that was talking to me about Tales of the Jedi. And the reason why I bring this up again, I know that we uh Tales of the Jedi was the little marketing thing that we saw with all of the shows and movies that are supposed to be hitting Disney Plus this year.
Yes. Okay.
So I wanted to get your opinion on this. I know that we talked about this briefly when Joe was on, but I recently saw a TikTok that had a theory that had me thinking this in a very positive way. But what if the Tales of the Jedi? Well, first off, I want to get your opinion. What do you think it is?
You could go a lot of different ways. I definitely think it's gonna lean more towards animated. But I think you could travel back in time and do a prequel. You could do you have to be that loud? He's over here shaking his butt. Love you, buddy. He's left now. I think it definitely could be animated, and it could just go in different anthology aspects. Like you could have a Mace Windu one, you could have a Yoda one, you could have a Luke Skywalker. Heck, I got what is the one? See, I'm over here pulling out comics, y'all. It's on here somewhere. I just don't know where it is. Oh, it's right here. I had it in my hand the whole time. The Weapon of a Jedi, which is an IDW comic. That might be a good one to put on there too. When like Luke's like first exploring his lightsaber and everything. I don't know. Tales of a Jedi is very generic, but it's also a direction that I've wanted Star Wars TV to go in for a while and try and choose the anthology aspect and then develop spin-offs based off on those anthology episodes that like go out the water in terms of like reaction.
Yeah. So take this with a grain of salt because again, I just saw it on a TikTok and I was like, this could be a really cool idea. What if the Tales of a Jedi is basically the adventures of Luke and Grogu? Tales of the Jedi being a Grogu story, not necessarily a Luke Skywalker story. Now, again, it technically would be. And if people get upset about this, like, and I'll be completely honest, I don't think people will get upset about this because they're getting more Luke Skywalker.
Right.
Again, I think Snell would get angry at this because it's a flashback or, you know, in between timelines or whatever he hates. But I think it would be a really cool idea to be basically the trials of a Jedi in the perspective of Grogu. As Bub says, Grogu, a Star Wars story. That's basically what it would be. But again, it could be animated. It could be live action. I don't know they would go the live action route. I would, if it is a Grogu centric story, I would much prefer it being animated. And because then, like, it would be very interesting on how they would be even portray Grogu, like, once he starts talking. Like, I don't like at what age does his species start talking? You know, he technically, like, using the Force, talked to Ahsoka, but like we never got that interaction. We saw it outwardly. So
I think that could be really cool. That's a good idea. I didn't think of it myself. Because Luke doesn't train Grogu for forever. We know that because the rise of Kylo Ren is timeline wise in 28 ABY, which is 28 years after New Hope.
I need to learn that timeline. I always ask, like, wait, what is this timeline compared to this? How many years is this compared to that?
I just Googled it. So,
y'all, in mouth.
I like to pretend like I know shit. So, but I know where to look for things, and that's the key part. So Grogu is not featured in that Charles Soule comic.
Mm-hmm.
And Mandalorian takes place 9 ABY, 10 ABY, somewhere in that range. Because we don't know how much time passes between season 1 and season 2. And season 1 takes place in 9 ABY. So that's, gosh, I can't do math.
You said 28 and 9, right? So
yeah. So 19 years.
Yes.
So 19 years for Grogu to get trained while also still leaving room for Ben Solo to come in, because in the Rise of Kylo Ren, I can't find this comic anywhere and it's bugging the crap out of me. But
Which
I
one?
actually take that back. Joe said it was on mycomicshop.com.
Oh yeah.
But I looked up the story today, and it actually says on the Wikipedia summary that Ben had not talked to Leia for several years. So he had been with Luke for several years at that point and not seen Leia. So I don't picture he's with Luke very long.
Mm-hmm.
So I think him coming back to Mandalorian is legitimate, but I also think it could be interesting to see, especially because, well, I take that back. Because the Star Wars comic run is currently doing Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
So it will be probably another 2 years before they hit after Return of the Jedi time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? Y'all, I got way too engrossed in comics in the past 3 weeks.
I'm so proud. It's like it is a whole new set of serotonin. You will find out. Like there's a whole lot of people out there that's like, "Oh, I don't care about canon. I just like good stories." But when you can read like a certain number of books and like follow a story all the way through, it is great. I love it. It is like cuz I'm a big story person. Like, yeah, I can appreciate the one shots, I can appreciate a limited
Mhm.
series, but when you can tell me, hey, this movie connects to this book, which connects to this comic, which connects to this animated series, which connects to that audiobook, which is made into a finale of this show, you're just like, oh my God, it is so cool. I'm sorry. I
Well,
just love it. I love it.
well, but it's kind of also bugging the crap out of me because, like, these books, y'all, I am a timeline Nazi. So, my Legends bookshelf, I had to figure out because there are 4 books that are a trade paperback size versus the mass market paperback size of Legends.
Mhm.
And so these 4 books don't stack how I have my Legends books because my Legends are all in vertical stacks.
Yes.
And y'all have tweeted pictures. They're on my Instagram. So if you want to, if you're curious, you can go look. But like I had to figure out a specific way. I had to add another shelf specifically so that I could still have everything in timeline order and have these books appear at the right spot on my bookshelf. And
Mhm.
all these books over here, the canon books that I'm pointing to, they're all in chronological order in the timeline based on publisher or like format. So like I have a full paperback canon shelf that's Del Rey, a full Del Rey hardcover shelf, and then the young adult books.
Oh, so they're not even in order of timeline via per book. It is literally the format of the book.
Yes, because it bugs the crap out of me when I can't get things to stack properly. Like these two, from a certain point of view, books,
I can see them kind
mhm,
of leaning.
they're
Yeah.
shorter. Yeah, they're shorter than everything else. I love these books. If you have not read the From a Certain Point of View books, they are especially good in the audio format. I love them. Can't highly recommend them enough, but they're shorter than the rest of my books. And so I'm like, okay, they're about to go down to the young adult shelf when I get a new bookshelf. I am a timeline Nazi. And so I have not been able to figure out a sheet on Wikipedia. So if you're a Star Wars fan and you know of a comic timeline, please let me know because I would love to have that. So,
I would be interested in seeing a comic timeline as well because with me being a host of a Star Wars show, I am just now getting into the books, but I've always loved comics. Now I need to catch up on the most recent Star Wars comic. I just randomly read issue 20 because Elzar Mann was a part of it, and that was such a good issue. Um,
yes, I
but
was
I
really impressed.
I want to get into it. So with that, just wanted to get your thoughts on Tales of a Jedi. I
that,
think
that turns into a whole spiel about comics and timelines,
well,
y'all. I'm sorry.
it does deal with timelines because the one big thing for me is I find it very interesting how Favreau and Filoni and just everybody at Lucasfilm is literally able to be like, oh yeah, this is slotted right between these two movies and these two episodes of this one show, and this is gonna go right in here. Like, but in the end, does it all still make sense,
Mhm.
And we made the comment in the last episode of the Book of Boba Fett that Chris Stanton technically doesn't meet Boba like that. So, like, yes, you can kind of technically do away with some stuff, which I mean, kind of shuns away some of our beloved comic book readers of this series. But like, at least you got it in live action now, right?
Mhm.
So it is what it is. But before we go into our last ad break, I have a question from Snell himself. Travis Snell
So you
sent
mean the
us.
Snell that doesn't listen to our show?
Now, I will say he recently I think it was in Marvel Alliance. He referenced some of the stuff we were talking about in an episode. So
I know. I like to
I
do
think
stealth shit.
we poked enough buttons to get him to talk about or to listen to our show. So he asked us the question: if we live in the world where Kenobi didn't get past 1.6 million on debut, just behind WandaVision and Falcon, is that more the MCU is a bigger brand, or is Star Wars not as hot as it once was? So, what do you think?
So number one, the streaming service viewer stuff, it's not completely realistic because the streaming services, we've talked about it before, they don't release full numbers.
No, and then
Um,
Samba's numbers are only based off of the smart application of Samba TVs. Like they only pick up a certain amount of the majority that is watching these shows.
yeah, so you have to take all that we're getting kind of with a grain of salt, because Samba's willing to release those numbers, but Disney's not.
S Bubs,
So
you're about to get muted. You're about to get muted. How could you say this on a Star Wars show? He says, I'd say MCU is bigger. Blasphemy.
I would tend to agree with that too. MCU has just provided. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Oh, I'm gonna say it. Has provided simpler storylines that look different enough to still appeal to a wide variety of audiences.
Okay. Okay.
Because so their stories tend to sit a little bit better with people long term. A lot of people are like, Book of Boba Fett is boring. Some people, James Preston Poole, a guy I work with for the critics, yeah, for Full Circle, he has said that this is his favorite piece of Disney produced media. Now, if you looked at the wide reaction on the Twitterverse this morning of people who actually got up at 3 a.m. to watch this, you would find that in the minority.
Mhm.
So, uh, Book of Disney has not hit on a lot of marks for Star Wars. Now, again, I do not picture Kenobi not breaking this number because of, like I said, my mom is getting Disney Plus to watch Kenobi. My aunt is going to be watching Kenobi. My grandma is going to be watching Kenobi. Y'all, they don't watch Star Wars. When I talk about certain things that have come out in Star Wars, they're like, "Oh yeah, very nice."
Yeah.
No, they're super excited for Kenobi. So I don't picture them not breaking Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think WandaVision was definitely more success, but still kind of fell into the typical MCU storyline. Falcon and Winter Soldier was definitely a typical MCU storyline. So it kind of all depends. But I think definitely first episode, they're breaking that 1.6 million number.
Yeah. I think that they will break it as well. Kenobi is just a whole new monster, and an old monster technically. But you brought up a good point about like simpler storylines and everything, and I had a immediately thought. I cannot speak right now. I had the immediate thought of something that I didn't necessarily want to share, but I'm going to go ahead and share it. And I know we've talked briefly about this, and I feel like this is like the one thing you should never talk about when it comes to Star Wars. But at what point should we consider rebooting Star Wars to tell that simpler timeline story? Do you need to? That's the question. There's a better question, because I know the reboot Star Wars is a hard question. It is something that has, it's been with us for how many years now? 40, 50 years? Almost 50?
Almost 50 years.
Almost 50 years. So, do they need to reboot in order to tell a simpler timeline like you were talking about?
Here's my answer, and people aren't going to like it.
Oh.
If you want a simpler Star Wars story, go read Legends. They follow a very specific set of characters. There is probably, I would say there's probably less than fingers and toes stories that don't follow. Okay, I can't say that. If you hit prequels timeline and up, there is less than fingers and toes the amount of storylines that do not follow somebody in a movie.
Okay.
So there's less than 20 storylines if you go prequel trilogy and up. There's less than 20 storylines in these books that follow a character that is not in a movie. Or that doesn't at least feature a character from the movie.
Yeah.
That you can relate to. That is why I fell in love with Star Wars Legends so much, is because it was a very simple storyline. I've been collecting these books for 14 years. I'm 26 years old. And 14 years is best estimate because my mom was buying some of these books, so I don't exactly know when I started. So 14 years, I think I read my first one when I was 10, and then I started trying to collect.
Yeah.
So they were very easy to follow. I read Luke Skywalker to death. And it's very simple storylines. They get made fun of so much in like Star Wars media for being simple storylines with out of the box features. Like Children of the Jedi by Barbara Hambly, I think is her last name. It was my first Star Wars book, and it is the wildest story. Luke goes to a planet to try and find more Jedi. And y'all, it's been a while since I read this book, but so I'm summarizing in a general way. He goes to this planet and runs into a super weapon, and that super weapon has a Jedi Padawan who transported her consciousness into the ship's onboard computer. And he falls in love with that Jedi Padawan. And they manage to extract her out of the computer and into the real world. And then they proceed to date. She's been in that PC for like 10 years. The wildest story. Yuuzhan Vong dug a lot into like climate change and like trying to promote a lot with that. But they are wild aliens, y'all. They are some masochistic, they love self-harm, not to glorify that or anything, but like they do like excessive body modifications. Like if you cut off a limb, you're glorifying their gods and everything. Yikes. So Star Wars Legends tell us some wild stories, but they're also very simple because they follow a very similar pattern the whole time. So while I love Star Wars Legends, and I am very, very sad Mara Jade is not canon, I have enjoyed the canon storylines because they're bringing a level of complexity to the stories being told in the universe.
Makes sense.
That was a wild way to say.
No, don't reboot is basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
I guess I just love chaos, and I'm just like, just do it. Like, and I know it'll never happen. It's almost like the contract of Back to the Future. It's like, hey, you can never reboot this, no matter how many years past their death. You know, it's just like it's sacred, and it'll never happen. But then somebody's gonna sell out, and they're gonna be like, yeah, let's do it. You know,
I would say the best bet for Star Wars would be to do something very similar to like what they did with rebooting the Star Trek movies. And you can call it copycat all they want, but y'all, there is no original story. There's no original story. So if you can take Spock out and pluck him and put him somewhere else, then I think that's the way to do it. So
Gender swap Star Wars full reboot. Brie Larson is Luke.
We gotta fucking fight S-pubs. I mean that in the nicest way. Stop gender swapping shit.
That's
Females deserve their own storyline.
That would be chaos. Oh my gosh.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Brie Larson in a Star Wars, but I think she needs to be a main character.
I want more of like I was about to contradict myself. I was just about to say I want well-known actors in the Star Wars universe, but in the same kind of criticism that Travis had for Danny Trejo, sometimes the too familiar characters or too familiar actors showing up in a big IP kind of takes you out of it. Like, in the sense of like people, the big actors being in MCU, it's still on Earth. You're still like, it's still a human being on Earth, and so you're like, okay, that is plausible. Like, but thinking of it as a galaxy far, far away and being in this entirely different universe, and then all of a sudden you see freaking, I don't know, like if Chris Evans just popped up in Star Wars, I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? You know, it would be weird. And I don't know if you would have to like really like just put a helmet on Brie Larson or give her some makeup, make her Twi'lek, or like I don't know. But I think people should be a little bit more open to individuals like a Brie Larson joining Star Wars, because if you can accept Samuel L. Jackson as a motherfucking Jedi, you can accept Brie Larson as well. I'm sorry, it's just you can do both.
Yeah, I think for me, with known actors coming into the universe, it's not that big a deal. I'm gonna nerd out regardless of what's on screen. Meilu
True.
runs were on screen last week, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a Meilu run.
Yeah.
And then in today, because I have not noticed this, and this is a question that we'll get to, but like at the end of the episode, you see Boba and Finnick talking. And all of a sudden, I just now noticed this, but Boba has Din Djarin's crest on his Beskar shoulder plate.
Not only that, but before we get into that, let's go ahead and take our last ad break and let's talk about this episode. So we will be right back. All right. So this episode, I don't know the title of this episode actually.
The Gatherings of Storm.
Okay. So first, I will say this. I will officially put my money down and say this is the last flashback.
Yes. Boba is completely healed. We're good to go. Droid has said approved. I really liked the snide comment Finnick tossed in. What about the scars on the inside? And Boba was like, oh yeah, those will take a little more time.
So I think that this is the last flashback. We got to see. Oh shoot! It was only this morning that I watched this. Come on now. The flashback was, of course, him meeting Finnick. Now I will say the one contradiction that I have with this show, the one conflict that I have with this show, with this episode in particular, is I wish they would have been a little bit more visually aware to like, hey, this is several years past all that, you know?
Yeah, because it's not entirely clear that it has been several years, but at the end of the last flashback though, we're still relatively, because we don't know how long time has passed in the flashback though, we're still relatively couple days to a couple months probably after Return of the Jedi, when Boba is in the Sarlacc pit. And so Mandalorian season 1 is 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So 5 years has passed between start of flashback and end of flashback.
Yeah. Because all of a sudden he sees the giant flash of the flares. He goes over there, sees Finnick, and he saves her. Of course, we knew this happened because of Mandalorian. Now, my thing. and we'll kind of jump all over the place with this because I do think that this episode didn't really have a whole lot of like meat and potatoes with it. It was very like, hey, this is the one plot that we have for this episode, which is we need to go get the what's his new ship name? It is the
Okay, he does not ever name it because I hear Nathan in the back of my head. He does not ever name it. And I did some research today, and it has never been officially named in a movie. It has never been officially named Slave One in a movie.
Okay, so yes, Slave One was technically just on the box of the toys. Yes, you
Right.
are correct. But he does say the name in this episode.
He
which
says,
is,
I need my fire spray gunship back.
yes.
Which fire spray is technically the class
Not the
of
name.
the ship. We see Hondo, for instance, fly a fire spray in the Clone Wars.
Yes.
So just to kind of put some context there, it is Boba does say my fire spray gunship.
Yeah.
So headcanon the shit out of it, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So
we'll leave it at that.
So his big thing is getting the fire spray back. And he, in order to do so, he of course recruits Fennec's help. And she says, okay, well, with this will be, we are squared, away
right,
with
because so we see Boba take Fennec to a mod parlor, and that is what the cyborg gang group is actually called, the Mod Gang, and that's what Fennec references them as in this episode. And so it's called Mod Parlor, and oh gosh, what was his name? There's a cameo. Oh gosh, James and Christian are gonna kill me. It's Star Fox, I think.
Star Fox, like the video game?
No, okay, hang on, I'm pulling this up. This is gonna bug crap out of me.
Star Fox, Star Wars. Let me see here. Star Fox.
He's Thundercat. Excuse me.
The Thundercats are in here too. Holy shit!
No, Oh gosh. Okay, hang on. Book. It was the modifier. Was Thundercat.
Thundercat. Okay. So, who is he, and why should I care about him?
I don't know. I think he was just like a cool cameo, like Danny Trejo. Okay, hang on. Book of Boba Fett Wikipedia.
Let's see here.
Steven Thundercat Bruner as a mod artist. Thundercat is an American bass guitarist, singer, and songwriter from Los Angeles.
Huh. Okay. Well, that's something I did not know.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Don't kill me, Kristen and James.
Espub says Harry Styles, Star Fox? No. Different movie. Different movie. Now, Fennec, of course, does get modified. She is now healed from her wound. And of course, he recruits Fennec to get his gunship. Now, he says, this is very important to me, blah, blah, blah. They go to Jabba's palace, and he's like, okay, well, looking at the hollow map that Fennec was able to basically take of the palace, there's too many guards. And they're like, okay, well, that just means we have to sneak in. I will tell you, I was not a fan of the droid fight in the kitchen.
You didn't like the Grievous droid?
It was a little silly to me. A little too silly in that retrospect. And it didn't really do anything because like Boba Fett manhandles this tiny droid and he's like, do you know who I am? I am Boba Fett. And then the droid just shuts himself off. And it's just like,
and you see that droid come back in the feast in the present day scene later.
Yeah, he is there later on. But they end up getting his ship, and they ultimately go try to find his Beskar armor. Now, of course, we know where this armor is. But they do.
He came out of the pit dazed, y'all. He like it was blurry, and he's
Yeah,
like,
he didn't know that Jawas took his Beskar armor. Now, my thing is, how big is this freaking Starlack pit? That thing
I
put
was.
the entire ship in its mouth.
Mhm.
It didn't make any sense.
It does not put it in its mouth. The mouth is the little snapper bit that comes
Yeah,
out.
the fake mouth there.
Right, the pit portion.
Pit portion of the mouth. Yes.
So I knew this. The Sarlacc pit, I think, could span several. I'm not going to say parsecs, but it can span several miles. I want to say. So Sarlaccs began their lives as spores and were able to travel great distances. When a male and female encountered one another, the smaller male would parasitically feed off the female, diminishing her size while increasing his own. Once the male reached the female's original size, he would burst, releasing millions of spores in the air and atmosphere.
That's gross.
Sarlaccs reached maturity after 30,000 years, and they would burrow themselves nearly 100 meters below the surface, feeding on creatures and humanoids unfortunate enough to fall into their mouths. And mobilizing neurotoxins, 100 meters in height, entire body buried in sand, save its massive mouth and beaked tongue. So maybe it is their mouth.
Ha! So the beak is their tongue.
Yeah. So.
Ha! Yeah.
Little bit of random Star Wars factoids for you guys.
I found it very silly that like it was able to pull the entire ship in its mouth, and I was like, okay, this is crazy. I in fact chuckled at the
fire in the hole.
Fire in the hole and don't touch my buttons. I did enjoy that. I enjoyed Boba just freaking gunning down the gang that killed the Tusken Raiders. Like, there is no conversating in that. It's just like, oh, an eye for an eye, and boom, he just killed every single one of them.
I was really impressed they were still on Tatooine. I was like, why the hell are you still on Tatooine?
Yeah, all those years. Yeah. Really crazy to think that.
And it warps your sense of time, this way of storytelling, because Boba could have been with the Tuskens for 2 years. We don't know. He could have been with them for 4 years.
Exactly. Like, this is why I was a little confused when there wasn't hey, several years later or whatever at the beginning of this episode. Like, it just.
But Star Wars really has never done that.
No.
And he's been with the Tuskens. We don't know how long he was with the Tuskens. So.
True. But they get his ship. They do all that. They find the Beskar is not there. And this is where he has the conversation with Finnick about, hey, like, I'm going to run Tatooine. And not only that, you're going to help me do it. I will cut you in on all of the profits and all of the operations and everything. You will be my better half, basically. And she says, why? And it's really weird because we always assumed that Finnick had a life debt to Boba. But now after this episode, it's almost as if he has a life debt to her. Because he basically gives that to her.
I think one of the biggest things that kind of relates Finnick and Boba, and we don't know a lot about Finnick Shan's backstory. I'd love to see something very similar to a Phasma novel for her, just to kind of explore it, because she's such an interesting character. And y'all, I would bet $100 Ming-Na Wen would come in to do the audiobook. Like,
oh yeah.
She loves this character, y'all. Like, you can just see it on screen. You can see it in her promotion. She was up at midnight tonight watching the episode. So there's just so much potential with her character that I think we don't know exactly why she sticks around. But it's also, I think she's intrigued by what Boba's proposing.
Yeah.
because bounty hunters have always been at the back end of negotiations, like Boba says in this. And Christian, I'm calling you out again, man. You caught this, or somebody caught it and you tweeted it. But Boba's direct quote says, "Loyalty. I will cut you in on the success and pledge my life to protect yours." And it relates back to Clone Wars Season 7, Episode 9, Old Friends Not Forgotten, when Ahsoka and Anakin are walking down the hallway and a clone says "Commander," and Ahsoka's like, "I'm not a Jedi anymore. They don't have to do that." And Anakin tells her loyalty means everything to the clones. And so while Boba wasn't necessarily a clone for the clone army, he was still bred like a clone for the clone army. He was just unaltered. So those thought process lines still lie within him. And I just thought that was such an amazing callback, is to really play on that loyalty aspect. Because, I mean, he lost his father when he was a young kid, and he's kind of he's trying to rebuild himself a family. He lost his family again with the Tuskens, and now he's like, I'm tired of running. I'm tired of working for somebody else. I want to build my own house. And I found it interesting because when he first brings it up to Finnick that he wants to rule Jabba's territory, and he said, Finnick says, "You want your own Gatra." And the only time Gatra is ever referenced is in terms of the droid Gatra, which is heavily mentioned in Dr. Afra, as well as some other media in that time frame. But it was a group of droids who were for droid independence and fought against the Empire. They worked for a lot of other crime lords, but they also built their own empire. So she says Gatra up front, but then says house on the back end.
Yeah.
So I find that use of terminology very interesting, because Gatra is basically defined as a group. But if she said Gatra, then why wouldn't she use it at the end?
Yeah.
So.
But that ends our flashback, and then we are in the present time where Boba is now. He first goes to Black Chrysanthemum, sorry, and he meets him at the pub, at the bar, and Chrysanthemum has a little action scene of his own, and this is basically him saying, "I don't give two F's about what rules are what. I'm drunk, I'm angry, and I'll do what I want."
Well, because the group he attacks are Trandoshans, and Trandoshans and Wookiees never got along. Trandoshans actually hunt and enslave Wookiees in canon timeline. In fact, it's one of the stories mentioned, and from a certain point of view, Strikes Back. Bosk, is it Bosk? I think it's Bosk. The Trandoshan bounty hunter was actually in the middle of hunting Wookiees, and is in particular Chewbacca, when he runs across his sister, who he had originally eaten. And she's like mutilated. And
wait, hold on. Run that sentence by me one more time. He bumps into his sister that he ate. What?
So he was in, y'all, okay, it's been like a year since I read this, but he had to basically destroy his siblings. And so he ate parts of them, basically just destroying a nest of eggs. And so he destroys the nest and is like, okay, cool, I'm done. And she manages to escape and is rescued by Wookiees. So it's
okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Well, of course, the beautiful Jennifer Beals, the awesome Twi'lek that we have on this show, I will say, will always be my celebrity crush.
I was so in love with the dress she was wearing. I was like, S-Pubs, y'all, I'm gonna find this story.
It sounds like an AI generated Star Wars plot. It sounds freaking wild. But Jennifer Beals, of course, being our Twilight that owns the bar, basically confronts Chrysanthemum and it was like, "Hey, you were like loved by thousands in the arena, and people would scream your name, and you were all flamboyant and blah 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 blah. Those days are long gone. You need to chill the fuck out.
This is a
Sit
more
down,
civilized
take a
age.
drink, live your days. It'll be fine." And what does he do? He rips off the arm of this Trandoshan, throws him down. And the comment that she had made was, if you leave them alone, we'll even pay your tab. You're good. And I love the way the Geekverse guys said it this morning. This was basically an insult to Chrysanthemum, basically being like, "You don't think I can pay my own tab? You think I'm poor? Not only do you think I'm poor, you think that I'm just going to give up on an enemy?" So what does he do? He rips the arm off of this dude and pays his tab and then walks out.
Now, the Trandoshan's arm is going to grow back. They can grow their limbs back. Let's be real. And he only pulled one off. He could
Yeah.
have pulled both off.
Exactly. He gave him, he gave him that much. But Boba walks in on basically all of this, follows Chrysanthemum out, and is like, "Hey, I got a job for you." Next thing we know, we see the dinner that was so not viable,
Okay, wait.
visible in the trailers.
I
Oh, go
found
ahead.
the summary, okay? Y'all, this is legit, I promise you. So this is in the Wikipedia biography of Dashana Lawuk. The female Trandoshan who came to be known as Chainbreaker was from the same clutch as her clutch mate Bosk. After hatching, Bosk ate his unborn siblings' eggs, including Chainbreaker's. Their father, Kradosk, always told Bosk he had consumed all the eggs, but Chainbreaker secretly survived but was crippled. Kradosk exchanged her cracked egg to Rindo for a bottle of Kowokian rum. The Wookiee named the hatchling Dashana Lawuk and raised her as a Wookiee in her clan. I did not make it up.
That's wild. That is wild.
And that story is by Michael Cogg.
I need to. Is this just a novel or is it an audiobook as well?
So it is an audiobook, and they've got several different readers. I think Neil Patrick Harris returns. Sam Witwer reads several. John Hamm reads the Boba Fett one.
Send me the either the link to the audiobook or just the title. I have 2 credits available. I'll take it. 100%.
You should read the New Hope one first.
Okay, send me that one then. But there's this dinner that was on all the trailers that was supposedly supposed to be, part of the first episode or whatever, because all the trailers were just the first episode.
Yeah.
But
I laugh at that a lot.
We get this dinner, and it's all of the mob families, basically. I had a problem with this dinner. The reason why, it does not show how much of a badass Boba thinks he is. And the reason why is he's talking all this big mess. He's like, "Hey, I think that we should all come together and figure this stuff out." And, everything, this, that, and the other. And then they're like, "Or what?" And Boba says, "I don't know." Like, basically, he's just like, "Oh, nothing." Like, "Or what? What do you mean, or what?" "Nothing. Nothing's going to happen to you. I just want you to be neutral." That does not show me anything in the sense of how strong you are as a crime lord. And this is the problem that I have. Because I know the Geekverse guys are not happy with the way this TV show is coming out. I have enjoyed every episode to a certain extent.
I thought Taylor was really happy with it.
Yes, Taylor is happy with it. Kirkland and Travis are not. And I can understand
Travis isn't
why.
happy with anything.
Well, no, don't get me wrong. I understand why. And here is the reason why. Because Boba Fett, when he was created for the Star Wars franchise, was a bounty hunter, is an assassin. that category of character is not a good guy. Now, you go all the way now and see the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is kind of a bounty hunter within himself, but he has a moral compass now that Grogu is a part of his life. He has that
Mhm.
connection of, hey, I was a, what does he call it? A not a youngling, a shoot. Uh
Foster?
yes, basically.
Orphan?
Yeah. There's a certain word for it, but basically an orphan as well. And because of that moral compass, he leans towards the side of good on a lot of these stories that we've gotten from the Mandalorian. Then we reintroduce Boba Fett. We want to put him in the spotlight. You cannot put a villain in the spotlight per se. Like, of course, you can say, oh, well, they made Joker, they made the movie Joker, but that wasn't Disney. Disney is in the company of is in the business of making family oriented products.
Even their villain based movies have found a way to turn the
Cruella,
villain.
look at Cruella. Cruella was a
Mhm.
person that killed dogs and made their pelts as like clothing. That's not
Mhm.
how Cruella went, you know? And so unfortunately, you have to take Boba in the light of Disney that he's going to be seen as a good guy. He's going to be portrayed as the better person, even though everything beforehand tells us that's not what Boba is.
And everything before that is him as a kid dealing with the anger of losing his father,
Mhm.
or a movie where he's maybe seen for 30 minutes, if that, between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
Maybe even
And
less than that, to be completely
it's
honest.
less than that. I was being generous. But I like everything in Star Wars Legends tells a different story of where Boba is just trying to find a place in the world and build himself a family, and that's kind of where he ends up at the end. When Jaina goes to see if he'll train her to kill Jason, he goes, "Ah, that's not my realm of business anymore." Granted, he's like 80 years old at that point, but it's still like a lot of people were like, this isn't the Boba that we grew up with. There's
Mhm.
several points in Star Wars Legends where I can't remember who brought the example up, but it was like a crime lord had basically offered a woman to Boba for him to sleep with, or it was Leia. It was Jabba, and Leia was offered to him at the beginning of Return of the Jedi when she's captured. And Boba says, "I don't sleep with unwilling women." So he's just trying to find a place in the world, and I think
He's
that's
a
a very similar.
gentleman.
Mhm. He's a very. It's a very similar story to what's being told, I think, in Book of Boba Fett, and it's a very fine sense of found family. I mean, he adopts Chrysanthemum. He tells Chrysanthemum, "I got a job for you, if
Yeah.
you want it," and Chrysanthemum is there at the end, at the feast. He's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So Chrysanthemum is like, okay, like, and it's not that you could say, oh, Chrysanthemum maybe thinks, okay, I owe him a debt because he didn't kill me. He didn't sell me to the gladiator pits again. But
And
Boba's just trying to build loyalty.
yeah, and you could still say, oh, he can still be a badass for sure. Like the whole thing with the Rancor just popping up out of nowhere in the middle of the feast to scare off
Mm-hmm.
the other members of the other families. Like that kind of stuff is intimidation, but you are never going to see Boba kill an individual like he used to in the other reiterations of Star Wars. That's just not going to happen anymore. He even says, like at the end of this episode, like, "Oh, I have some scores to settle," and like, "Oh, now we can pay for some help or whatever." And
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned the Beskar emblem of
And I
Din
think
Djarin.
he's had that, but this is the first time that I've noticed it. And
So
there's a reason. There's a reason.
Right before the end credits, a split second before the Book of Boba Fett theme turns, it's the Mando theme for a split second, and then it turns into the Book of Boba Fett. So I do think that Din Djarin is going to be reintroduced into this series with next episode.
And I mean, we've talked about the promo image where there's just like a bad Photoshop attempt in the throne room or the mayor's throne room. I think it's the mayor's throne room, but so it's definitely completely possible. Heck, I don't know. We might see Ahsoka, for goodness sakes, because they've been talking about trying to like unite them, and Dave Filoni may have written an episode where they just decide to bring a Jedi in. I don't know. So I definitely, Din Djarin, I think, is definitely coming back. I did not actually notice the Mando theme at the end. I was reading the Wikipedia summary, not the Wikipedia summary this morning, because at 3 a.m. those summaries are not complete, y'all. So, but the Wikipedia was done when I was finishing up my review, and it said Fennec Shan mentions hiring Din Djarin as the needed muscle indirectly. And I said, wait, how did she do that indirectly? And to the point where Matt was in bed asleep, and I woke him up and said, at the end of the episode, was there any relation to Din Djarin? Like, I was pointing out the symbol on his Beskar, and probably why the Beskar was so prominently focused is to hone in on that symbol, but I did not pick up the music at all. I love the music that we're getting in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, but y'all, I'm terrible at recognizing what belongs to what.
Yeah. I am looking at the episode now at the very, very end. Boba is talking about the Pikes and, how, he's eventually going to, they are eventually going to take over all of Tatooine. He says, either way, we must prepare for war. She says, how much treasure do we have?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, credits can buy muscle. But she doesn't say anything about Din Djarin.
She doesn't say anything.
Now, I guess she could have, because, of course, like you said, the bounty hunter emblem is on his shoulder, so she could have been looking at that, kind of like tilting her head. But I still don't see it. I don't see anything that suggests Din Djarin, other than because, like, as soon as the camera starts to pan out, that's when you hear the theme of Mandalorian, and then it goes into the Book of Boba Fett, like I said.
Gotcha.
So, but that is the end of the episode. Like I said, for the most part enjoyed this episode. There was some nitpicks that I didn't like. I am hoping that now that we are away from the flashbacks, this goes full speed ahead. We are going to start getting into some craziness of this whole thing. I think the mention and or feature of Din Djarin's The Mandalorian will get a lot of people talking about this next episode, which is very, very good. And yeah, I'm very, very excited about it. But of course, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter. Just want to remind everybody to please go review the solo feed on Apple Podcasts for Star Wars Alliance. Screenshot it and send it to us via Twitter in order to get entered to win the out of print copy of Star Wars, The Old Republic Omnibus. You cannot find that anywhere. So please go enter that contest.
Yep. Sorry, y'all, I just completely I've been up since 3 a.m. I'm tired. You can find me on Twitter as well. It's at Slice of Katie. Remember, you can send in your review to me, Star Wars Alliance, or Clay. And we will put y'all down to enter it. I will send up a tweet and pin it. That way you can review it, and make sure you're following us and the Star Wars Alliance Twitter page for those of you who are not. It is Star Wars Last without the A, in the wars. Very important, don't forget it. At some point, y'all, I will make an email so you don't have to get on Twitter, but I'm too lazy right now. Got a lot going on. So,
We have a lot going on, yes, for sure.
if you cannot see by Clay's background,
I am moving. Oh, that does remind me. I guess this can be the very first episode that I say this. The first week. I'm pretty sure I said this on Last Star Wars, and I just haven't said it anywhere else on any other podcast. But the first week of February, I am not going to be on any of the GOA shows. I am going to be staying at a friend's house with not very reliable internet, and I just want to be able to put out good quality content for you guys. So hopefully, and I'm sure he will. Joe will probably be the one to volunteer to jump in here and talk Star Wars with you, Katie.
Cool. But yeah, y'all, we have a Fallen Star review coming. I promise it's in the works. We will hopefully have it recorded this weekend. Who knows? We may throw in some Eye of the Storm commentary on that as well. But as always, you can find us on here, the Geekverse YouTube channel, every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this podcast audio drops into your feeds on Thursdays. So yeah, that's about it. Remember, send those reviews in. We really appreciate it. It does help put the show in the feed of other listeners who aren't following us on social media. So it's greatly appreciated anytime you can review the podcast. And yeah, win a Legends comic book. Y'all, they're really great stories, I promise. They are why I fell in love with Star Wars. I still love them to this day. After I get my canon comics, I plan on going back and getting the Legends comics just for, shits and giggles. So, do enter to win it, because it's great storytelling. But y'all, thanks for being here. This has been a great episode, Clay. We had a lot of good conversations.
Yes. Espa, we promise we won't mute you for some of the very blasphemous things you have said this evening.
Yep. So y'all, if you're here live, make sure you come back in about 15 minutes for DC Lights going live for Superman and Lois review. And with that, I want to wish everyone a great day or night, whatever time of day you're listening or watching, and we will see y'all next time. May the Force be with you.
See ya.